3 people died in the woods last summer, and I'm not sure if I can tell anyone the truth about it. Part 4. A story by user isolated destination. All 3 of us were staring directly forward. Something in me whispered floor it as I thought momentarily of slamming down on the gas and running over the man in front of us. Floor it. Sloane screamed, again with the mind reading. I couldn't bring myself to do it. What if this person could help us? Who was this? What if he was out here in trouble just like the rest of us? Something in me knew that wasn't true. The instant I saw his face, standing there in the middle of the road blocking our way, I knew he meant to harm us. But still, I hesitated. The man smiled. "You'll look scared half to death," he said as he started walking towards us. Our windows had already been rolled down to air out the stench in the car. "Move out of our way," Trinity yelled out the front seat window. The man didn't react and continued walking toward us. "Max," Sloane whispered, "just do it." She was right. Without hesitating, I slammed on the gas. The car burst forward and then with a loud pop completely went defunct as a huge puff of smoke burst from under the engine hood. It was officially out of gas and all the pedal flooring I could muster had no effect at all. The engine gave another loud noise and an even larger puff of grey smoke filled the air. I could hear the man coughing, choking on the fumes. Run. It was all I could muster. Trinity and Sloane were out the door in less than a second and I immediately followed. I stopped myself, turned around and reached back into the car to grab the bloody sack containing the creature's arm, leg. We sprinted for the woods. We could hear the man coughing, wheezing, stumbling behind us. "Get back here, you little punks, you killed my dogs," he shouted at us. "Quick! Here!" Sloane motioned for us to climb up a steep embankment to get off the road and into the woods. "Get back here! Right now!" The man continued to scream, but we were now out of his sight. We continued to run into the thick cover of the trees and could hear him running and coughing down the road, perhaps thinking we're just ahead around a winding corner. I ran as fast as I could. I could feel my heart beating in my throat, but I didn't stop. Tree branches scraped the side of my face, hitting me repeatedly, but I didn't flinch. "Max!" I heard screaming behind me. It was Trinity, maybe 500 feet back. I had run so far and fast they could not keep up. I shook my head out of my running trance and realized what had happened. I started running back to the girls. They were panting, curled over on their knees trying to catch their breath. "I'm sorry, I was just running, I didn't realize I left you," I started, and Sloane started shaking her head. "Look," she was able to muster between pants. She pointed to the ground. It was a single shoe, covered in blood. I recognized it instantly. A bright orange Birkenstock with painted flowers and peace signs. It belonged to Shelby. "She's alive!" Trinity exclaimed. I didn't want to tell her that finding her bloody shoe out in the middle of the woods probably meant the exact opposite. Before I could speak, I heard a noise. We looked at each other trying to discern where it was coming from. High-pitched, urgent sounding. The 3 of us had our heads on a swivel, but it was impossible to tell where the sound was coming from. It was a whistle. We heard it again immediately, followed by a hissing puss. The noise was directly above us. We looked up, a dark silhouette starting down from a large, thick tree branch. "Up here!" the silhouette called. We glanced at each other, feeling equal terror and relief. It was a person. "Get up here, fast!" The person yelled again, "Please, it's not safe on the ground." Without thinking, we started climbing. I could hear the man's yelling growing more distant in the background, and my body was moving faster than my brain could process. The tree we were climbing was immense with large branches. The person calling from above must have been about 30 to 40 feet up, and I was never a big fan of heights. Trinity climbed the quickest, leveraging her short body up fast and swift. Sloane and I struggled slightly more, as we were taller and less agile. Trinity made it up first, and I watched as a pair of arms reached out and grabbed her onto a thick branch about as wide as a surfboard. I was about 10 feet below, still climbing, when I heard Trinity scream. I closed my eyes, feeling regret for coming up here, and following the orders of a stranger in the woods when Trinity followed her scream with an immediate exclaim of "Aunt Shelby!" I climbed faster. I was right beneath the large branch when a pair of arms reached out to me to pull me up the final last feet. I reached preparing to embrace Shelby when instead I saw an old, surprisingly strong woman with long flowing curly hair, covered in blood and dirt. She picked me up clean onto the branch, and then swiftly did the same for Sloane, pulling her to a branch right next to us. I looked around, confused, until my eyes landed on Trinity, who was sitting on the branch like it was a horse, and holding Shelby's head in her lap. Aunt Shelby was in bad shape, covered in blood, with large gashes across her chest and shoulder. "She's alive, don't worry," the old woman said to me. "She has been in and out of consciousness since I found her yesterday. But she is alive. I think she is fighting an infection, and we need to get her to a hospital immediately. This is your aunt, right?" "Yes," I replied. "She was attacked. We were driving up to the cabin, and she was in a different car, and it's actually that truck down there, and..." "It's okay," old woman said. "I lost a friend too. We were also staying at the cabin. I've seen the creatures and I know what's going on. I'm trying to get help for my friend Lindsay. Did you get to the cabin? Did you see anyone there?" My eyes looked down. "Oh," the woman said. "I figured as much, but didn't want to think about it. Stubborn idiot, I told her not to stay." The woman stopped, holding back a flood of tears. She bit the top of her hand, closing her eyes. I could feel her grief. "She saved us," I said. "What?" the woman replied. "Lindsay," I continued. "Your friend. When we made it to the cabin, she saved us. She protected us and exploded a bunch of the creatures. Without her we would all be dead right now. You're Stephanie, right? She told us you were right and that the cabin wasn't safe, and we needed to leave, and she died so we could get out." At this, Stephanie burst into tears and laughter. Well now, that's the first time in 50 years of knowing Lindsay that she admitted someone else was right. Ha! And we are going to get out of here just to prove that point. I looked at Shelby. "How did you find her and get her up here?" "Well," Stephanie started, "after I left, I followed the road out of here, but stayed in the woods alongside it for cover. It took longer to walk, but it felt safer. I would sleep high in the trees at night, and maybe get to trek a couple miles during the day. I don't know how long I had been walking, maybe 2 or 3 days, when I heard a terrible attack happen while I was getting ready to sleep in this very tree. I heard screaming and fighting from those things, and one of them landed right down at the bottom of this tree, right where your aunt's shoe is down yonder." She pointed down to the forest floor. "The creature had your aunt, and was about to rip her apart when another one came out of nowhere and they began fighting. Your aunt was still alive. I could see she was in shock, almost blacked out and wounded. I climbed down the tree and pulled her up. I may look old, but I am stronger than you think. It's amazing how weightlifting keeps me young. Anyway, she kept repeating she needed to find the kids over and over. I had to promise I would look for you once the sun came back up again." Sloane, Trinity, and myself were all listening intently. "This all happened just last night," Stephanie continued, "but that's not even the strangest part. The worst thing was that I did actually go back to look for you this morning. I know that your aunt was attacked on the road, so I ventured out there after waking up. I was waiting for the daylight. Your aunt was still conscious and said you were in a separate car. I walked out and only found a white truck. The keys were still inside when I heard a noise coming from further up the road. I quickly made it back to the safety of the trees and watched as I saw him, a man. Tall, blonde, wearing overalls. He was walking up to the truck and inspecting it. I thought about screaming to him for help, but a gut feeling told me not to. He reached into the car and took the keys. Then I saw him use some walking stick he had. He pointed it to the sky and it let out an extremely high-pitched ringing sound. Next thing I could hear was howling in the distance." "Wait, like, he controls the monkey dogs with a stick?" Trinity asked. "I don't know," Stephanie said, "but I know he is somehow behind this, and without those keys we are hopeless." Stephanie broke down. "We are as good as dead now, and there is no way out of this." "What?" Sloane started. "Hopeless? What do you mean? You can't be serious." I didn't know what to say. Shelby was lying there, unconscious on the verge of death. Stephanie had her head in her hands and Trinity was silent. "We are not hopeless," Sloane shouted, almost laughing. I looked at her angrily. but sympathetically. I thought maybe she had finally had enough and was about to crack. I wanted to say something to help, but I felt hopeless too. I had nothing left, I couldn't be strong anymore. I stayed silent, then said, "Sloane, I'm sorry. I'm out of ideas. I don't know what to do." Sloane looked confused. That's fine, and good for you. But I'm not out of ideas, and we are not hopeless. I looked at her, expecting some kind of motivational speech to come out, for her to inspire courage in all of us, to make us believe we would be okay despite the gravity of our situation. "Okay, Sloane, what do you got? What one thing can you say to make us feel like we have hope or can get out of here?" I said, "that we are not totally, completely, fucked." She looked at me equally annoyed and puzzled. How about 1997 Ford F-250? What? Trinity asked. "I don't know," Sloane said. "Shelby drives a 1997 Ford F-250, maybe just the easiest truck to hot wire?" "You really spend all your time on the internet, don't you?" "Yes," Sloane replied. "But I actually learned this from Shelby last summer when she lost her keys at the river." "You know how to hot wire a car?" Stephanie asked, surprised. "Yeah," said Sloane, "it might take me a minute to remember, but I've seen it done before. I can do it again." We all looked at each other. In the distance we could hear noises. It was hard to tell what they were. Maybe a person, maybe something else. "Okay," Stephanie said, "we can do this. We can actually try to get out of here. We will climb down. The car is just a few minutes walk through the woods towards the road. It will take some time to carry your aunt down the tree. It's probably an hour or so from nightfall now. We will head out first thing in the morn." "No." We looked toward Trinity. "No," she shouted again. "We leave right now. We can't wait." "But it's impossible," Stephanie started. "If we are down there at night, we are done for." "I don't care," continued Trinity. "We saw the man too, the one who you saw take the keys. He was waiting by the car, blocking us from leaving. He will be back and he will take the truck, and then we will really have no chance. We leave now." Sloane looked at me. I looked at Stephanie's panicked eyes. Trinity was right. "But what if they come after?" Stephanie started, but was again interrupted by Trinity. "Then we will fight. We leave now."
That is the fourth part of this story. Who exactly is the man in the woods? Was he really the one controlling the monkey wolves? Is he the pack master? And what will be the plan of Sloane to get the team out of the forest? To know on what will happen next, share and subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll receive all the updates from us. And also, I kindly ask you to like and share this video, and comment down below on what you think about today's episode. This is the Double Dutchman, and we are grateful for your support by tuning in on today's story. Until then, we'll see you on our next episode.